Hey everybody, Professor Steins here, and this is kind of part two to go along with IT summer camp, trying to make a flyer from a Photoshop file. So in the previous video, kind of went through a little bit how to pull out some of the layers and make your own sheet, and started kind of getting to work on it, showing you how it's done. But then cut the video off, and in part two, this is kind of what I've ended up with. So this is where we originally started. I kind of had to substitute some of the fonts and stuff, but this is about where I'm at based on the original design. So it's pretty responsive. It kind of grows a little bit. It's kind of got a max width going on there, about 960. But it can go down a little bit smaller, down to about a phone size, and I think it still looks pretty good. A little bit of work down here in the footer. I think probably could still use a little bit of work. But overall, I think it works out pretty well. It does pretty well. So let's see. Let's kill this guy off and let's look at the folder that we have, and that's here. Still have a lot of things going on in here, mostly just in the. Let me open up code and show off some of it. So let's see, this is the main CSS file. It's kind of grown a little bit. Not too bad, still less than about 120 lines. Kind of went with a mobile first approach, so you'll see my media queries kind of starting small and growing, and mostly just kind of adding in space and increasing font sizes as we move up a little bit. Important to note, this is kind of using Sass principles, so there's some mix-ins up here at the top, got some variables declared, using them where appropriate, my blue. Some comments. Comments really do help you out when you come back later and try to figure out what you did and why. So again, a little bit of Sass syntax here, nesting the H1s and H3s inside of the header tag, and then when the Sass gets compiled and processed, some real rules will come out that kind of that in pure CSS will make sense. Kind of the same here, have one div apply and then kind of affecting it and the A tag inside of it. And Sass can really kind of help you define rules in a more modular manner. You can just kind of take any kind of hook that you find and then kind of hook in a lot of different controls from inside of it, and even controls from inside of those controls. It can really help minimize the amount of classes you have to use to apply what you want to apply. So again, kind of mobile first design, increasing some sizes as it gets larger. So most of the core CSS is probably applying at this with this in mind, and then things kind of grow as the page grows. Pretty neat. Actually, I don't think I used any JavaScript. Still just kind of have a basic console throwout. And HTML isn't nothing too fancy. Got some font awesome icons in here. And linking back to the main School of IT's website and stuff. Everything's kind of built relative from where it's at. This is kind of a one-page design, so I'm kind of assuming that we'll be able to throw this folder up somewhere and it'll become part of a URL. And should be easy to kind of just throw into a website anywhere and work. So you kind of see I have what Bower does when you build things, and this is kind of saying build. When you build stuff, it's going to kind of combine some stuff together. Now we're still using kind of a simple a simple thing going on here, but if we had a lot of CSS sheets and a lot of JavaScript files, Bower would kind of combine them together for us. And what I mean by that is that right now this is kind of my source code, and if I right click and view source, I'm in my development environment. Oh, because I killed the server off, didn't I? Let's see. Dun, 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 dun. Gulp serve. It's going to throw it up and get it going. There we go. And right click and view page source. You can kind of see everything's kind of there. Nothing's really minimized. Still have all these comments and stuff in here. But one of the neat things about this build is that in the command line, and there's a reason why I guess I killed it, is that if I do just gulp, run gulp by itself, what it's going to do is it's going to build a production version of my website. So if I look back in my folder now, I should have a distribution folder, dist, and in here is all of the minified files. So if I kind of look at main CSS, this would be my translated Sass file. Is that one, it's completely minified, and then two, it's kind of defining its rules its own way. You have to really, I guess, be kind of hard to see. See how it's kind of combining rules here, header H1, header H3. That's not really how we defined it when we defined this syncopate. This is the Google font that we're using. When we define that guy, header H1, header H3, in our Sass file, back to Visual Studio Code, dun, 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 further up to the top. Now, yeah, I think we were going to use that, but didn't. It's kind of separate on both of them, so it's the Sass is being compiled into a different CSS, kind of on the fly. Oh, we lost syncope. So, if you really wanted to, you could get down into the gulp file and figure out how to maybe turn that off. You can maybe read how it outputted it a little bit better. And to add to that, I posted it out on my GitHub. So, if you haven't gotten into GitHub before, it's a good way to kind of keep your code somewhere where you can get to it elsewhere. And I don't use it a whole heck of a lot, but I did throw IT Camp out here. And so it's out here if you kind of want to play around with it and install it. Now I'm going to kind of close some stuff down and kind of show how that might be done. Let's close all my windows, and don't want to close my recording software. I want to leave that up. But let's presume that we come out here and create a folder for my camp or whatever you want to call it to kind of test these things out. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of open up the command line. This would be the command line for Windows. But to kind of work with GitHub, you need to kind of have what's called Git itself. Git is kind of like the technology, and then GitHub is a implementation of that, and Bitbucket is another implementation of that. Give me a sip of juice. So, well, you'll kind of have to come out and install that guy and make it work. Now, it's kind of got its own command line. So when you see it installed, you'll get something, you'll kind of get a git GUI and a git bash. And this would be what git bash is. And we can kind of come in here and mess with the properties a little bit, maybe make it a little bit easier to read. There you go. It might be a little easier to read. So some of the basic commands that are in Linux exist in git bash. So ls is kind of a list service in git bash, but the same would be dir in Windows, which shows what's in the current directory. Right now I'm kind of on just my user for Cobra folder. So I want to go to the desktop and find our My Camp folder. I'm pretty sure that's what we called it. It would have given me an error if we went there and it wasn't there. My Camp. And let's git clone and out on this guy. And you're looking at IT camp. We're looking for this URL. You just kind of copy it here. So git clone, and we're going to want to paste this guy in. That's right click up here on the window, go to edit and paste, and that'll put the URL in the window. And click go. And that's really all I think we need to do with the git bash. So if I open it up now, we have an IT camp folder. Let me close this guy down. Have an IT camp folder, and this is the basic code. So it could do cmd to open up a command prompt, and I'll do, command prompt, code dot to open up this solution in Visual Studio Code. So there's the app folder that's got all the source documents in it. It's not going to work though if you try to come straight in and type in git gulp serve and try to make it work. It's not going to quite work. One of the things that you have to do first is you have to install all these guys. So if you in Windows command prompt, I have node here. You might have to actually use the node.js command prompt to do this, but I can do it from here, and that's just npm install. Now, this guy might take might take a minute to do its thing. If you end up coming up with a lot of errors in it, you might end up needing to npm global install gulp or global install some other things. So I'm just going to move that there. Got another video out on my YouTube about using gulp. So a little bit, should be a little bit helpful in getting you going. So let's see, try it now. If you get errors about gulp, you'll kind of need to make sure that it's installed globally. And what happens when I run npm install here is that it's going to be looking into the package file and kind of figuring out what is needed to make this solution work. So, and if you don't have it installed in the solution, which it's not going to be, it's going to pull all these things down and put them into the solution. So that's what it's doing. It's going out there and it's pulling down all these extra development dependencies, and it's going to try to do its best to make it work. And it's going to take a little bit of a minute. Gulp file is pretty much the same as it was the last video. I haven't made any changes in here. Kind of comes straight from the WebApp, I think is what we ended up using for GeoGenerator to get started. Yeah, that looks familiar. We took Bootstrap off and just started with a basic site. See how it's doing. It's really gonna take a minute. But it already had a lot of this stuff pre-installed on it. Let's see, Bower JSON is going to be the dependencies that we're expecting Bower to use. And so that would be normalize and modernizer, jQuery. We'll also kind of have to install that after this is done. npm installed the repo, but it does kind of rely on Bower too. So I'll have to install that after this is done. Hopefully that won't take too long either. I did have some test case generators in there, but I haven't really delved a whole lot into them. Gitignore is making sure that some folders don't get published to the repo, which is why you don't have the Bower components. You have to do this install stuff. It's kind of making sure that solution that's on GitHub doesn't have all the extra stuff that it needs. And some other configs that exist. Bower ERRC is going to be the folder where Bower is pointing to. So if you're kind of looking at the folder that we got, it's still running, but we got a node modules folder. We don't have a Bower components folder. We don't have a dist folder. We don't have a whole lot of I don't allow anything right this second. And And yeah, SAS is a really good language. I guess I got to find some more stuff to talk about and while it's still trying to run. So I've been kind of getting a little bit familiar with it, and it's just really, CSS kind of the way you'd want it to be. Being able to kind of nest things inside of things really does kind of help. Let's take a look. Something out here is going crazy. All right, got through a bunch of warnings. It's looks like it's trying to do some checks here to make sure everything's okay. That looks fine. Like I said, the second thing we have to do is made sure npm to install everything. But we don't have, if I did gulp serve, I don't know if it's gonna, we'll see if it works or not. Oh, I guess it does. I was thinking there's no Bower components in there. Yeah, there's no Bower components there. What's that about? Hmm. Well, if it works. I was thinking that you also need to do Bower install. If you don't have Bower, you have to do the npm global Bower too for that guy. I guess I don't have Git. Wherever I have Git, it's not going. It's not in the path. Hmm. Git bash. CD desktop slash mycamp slash itcamp. I'm not sure this is going to work. No, it looks like it worked. Now I got my Bower Components folder. So if I needed to add more things in there, I probably could. But hopefully that gets you kind of in there and playing around with it. The first part of the video kind of shows how to take a default generator, and hopefully take that and make something useful out of it, or kind of look this code over a little bit deeper and see what you like about it and what you don't like about it. And if you got any questions, feel free to post in class. Have a good one. Bye.